Our Sunrise FL Rotary Club invited Tamara Dawes, who has founded a homeless outreach organization, to be our guest speaker speaking about human trafficking and homelessness. Many who are trafficked, especially women, are vulnerable and sometimes they see it as an escape from homelessness. She includes some personal stories about some of the homeless people she assisted, as well as some women who have been trafficked, and why homelessness is often caused by addictions and other mental health issues. During the Q&A, she was asked whether most homeless are illiterate, and her answer may surprise you. She tells the story of an architect who became homeless and a high-earning Wall Street trader who fell on hard times.
Dr. Dawes is the president and founder of MJ Scarlett Foundation, Inc., an anti-human trafficking organization. The MJ Scarlett Foundation, Inc. is a 501c3 corporation that focuses on educating kids, teens, and adults on how to identify human trafficking perpetrators, know if they are being recruited, know how to protect themselves, and help others stay protected against sex predators. Dr. Tamara Dawes is a graduate of St. Thomas University, Benjamin L. Crump College of Law, where she obtained a Master of Law, LLM, and Doctorate of Law, JSD degrees in Intercultural Human Rights. Some of her other accolades include John Burnett Human Trafficking Academy Certified, Cultural Competency Certified, and FBI Keynote Speaker. Topic: homeless and human trafficking.
Thank you for having me. Before we start, I'd like to read kind of an article that I wrote in 2020 about just people that were homeless. And then I'm going to show you how homelessness and human trafficking are connected. So this article is titled, "I'm Just a Mom." It says, "I'm just a mom that had seen or heard stories of too many homeless mothers and their children. Like them, I've called all the places I could think of to get help, but there's no room at the inn. Shelters are not accepting anyone because of their COVID-19 mandated 25% capacity and do not know when they will be given permission to increase. There are no hotel vouchers available, and most churches are using their resources for their own members. Where can these families? The COVID-19 pandemic has affected us, all of us, but who will help these desperate families? I'm just a mom that has seen families sleeping in their cars, on plazas, and in numerous other places with nowhere to turn. Recently, I had a brief encounter with a single mother and her 16-year-old son. They were on a plaza with two small black bags containing all their possessions, asking for money to buy food. The security guard approached and asked them to vacate the premises because they were complaining about their presence and she didn't want to call the police. The kind security guard allowed me to get some personal information from the mother, whom I tried to help. The desperate mother related how frustrated she was in her hopeless attempts of trying to find accommodations, as the shelters were unable to accept them because of the COVID-19 mandate that limits their capacity. I informed her that I too had made numerous calls, so I can attest that information she shared was correct. I'm just a mom that knows of a single mother and her 3 children, including a young baby, who were thrown off their rented room in the pouring rain with all their belongings. The piercing screams of the uncomfortable rain-drenched baby, the older children running around barefoot and in distress, and the sight of their wet possession under the tree and the severe weather broke the humble mother, both physically and emotionally. Although she trembled uncontrollably, she was eventually able to compose herself enough to contact a family member for help, an option most other homeless families do not have. Currently, there are so many of these similar stories. Can we just sit back and do nothing? Where can these families go? I'm just a mom who is trying to help as many people as I can, while trying to keep a roof over my own child's head. A mother who has lost her 2-month-old daughter now 6 years ago. At that time it was 2 years ago. And knows the pain of seeing your children suffering while feeling helpless and inadequate to change the situation. Perhaps her life and net were to usher me into my purpose of being a voice for the voiceless. These vulnerable members of our society are susceptible to human trafficking and many other heinous crimes within our society. I'm just a mom. I have no political affiliation, no financial resources, just a passion to serve those in need. Will you help? We are our brother's keeper, and their grief, sorrows, and happiness should be our own. You may choose to look the other way, but you can't say you didn't know. William Wilberforce. Remember in 2020, I was on the plaza in Sunrise and I saw a mom who and her 16-year-old son, and they had nowhere to go. And I too had called so many places for people that I'd seen that were experiencing homelessness and was unable to help them. And you know, the capacity at that time was only 25% for a lot of the places, the shelters. So fast forward now, we're in 2025. Because a lot of the shelters, they get grants from the county, etc. Pre-COVID, they're operating at 100%, so they were getting a certain amount of money. When COVID came in, most of them were operating at only about 25%, so that money was decreased, right? So now, even though the pandemic has passed, a lot of them are still not at that budget where they were pre-COVID to be getting a lot of money. So you see that the shelters still don't have enough money, even though now we see more homelessness, more than pre-pandemic. And you know, what are we doing about it? So let's talk about what is human trafficking and how the two correlate somewhere. So human trafficking is using force, fraud, or coercion to exploit someone for sex, labor, or organ. Homelessness comes in so many stages, and people who are homeless tend to be vulnerable for trafficking for different reasons. So there are different stages of homelessness. It could be someone who, you know, lost their home and they're sleeping on someone's sofa, someone who's living in a car, someone who's living in a plaza. As I said, there's so many different degrees to homelessness. About 64% of human traffic victims reported being homeless at the time they were trafficked. So I know one young lady in particular who, she was in a foster care system, and just before she aged out, she decided to look for her mom. She found her mother, and she spent about 2 weeks with her, and then her mother told her that, you know, she had to leave. So there was a guy she met online, and he said, you know, you can come and stay with me. But when he went to pick her up, he says, you know what I do? I pimp young ladies. So at that time, she was caught between either going to sleep on the street or going to stay with this young man. Nobody wants to sleep on the street. She's never done that before. So she opted to go stay with him. And so she ended up being trafficked in Oklahoma, in Texas, and in Florida. So a lot of time people are vulnerable to human trafficking because of their situation. Vulnerability to homelessness, vulnerability to not having enough food. Someone pretend to be your savior who is going to help you out of that situation, but in exchange of, okay, so you know, I've helped you to be housed for the last 2 months, but this month I don't have any money to pay the rent. Can you go sleep with XYZ so that we can get enough money to pay the rent? At that point, that person, young man or woman, doesn't even realize that they're being trafficked. They're just thinking, okay, you know, this person is being really good to me. They're provided a roof over my head, and this month they don't have enough money to pay the rent. So I need to do my part and, you know, do whatever they ask me to do so I can get money so that I can maintain housing for both of us. So that ends up exploiting that person to trafficking. So let's talk about how we serve those who are experiencing homelessness. I know the Rotary Club has been amazing at helping us in our homeless outreach efforts. Narita has been downtown, so has Bruce and Ed. So it's when we go downtown to serve those who are experiencing homelessness, and this is like a photo from a flyer that we also give out to those who are experiencing homelessness. So we usually partner with a lot of different organizations because I believe that when we come together and pool our resources together, we can do so much more. So we've had we've had Health Bus providing health screening, we've had NAMI providing mental health services. We have the Rotary helping to distribute clothes and food and hygiene products, blanket, we've done shoes, we're partnering with churches, we're partnering with a lot of different community organizations. And this flyer that we give to them, it has a list of resources that they could use, but most importantly tells them, you know, to call 211 for additional resources. It offers information about if they're being trafficked, to call like Nancy J. Carterman Center for Help, or if they need housing, to call the Homeless Helpline. For some necessities, to call that Broward Partnership. For jobs and education, to call Career Source Broward. Or if they're a woman that's experiencing domestic violence, which may have resulted in, you know, cause them to be homeless, to contact Women in Distress. Or if they're veterans, to contact the VA. Different clinics are under if they're going through addiction or having mental health problems, where to contact as well. Or for additional services such as legal services, they can contact the legal aid. So I know Bruce really likes the survivor stories as it relates to homelessness. So I'm going to quickly tell you about 2 different homeless people that we helped that were really good results. So there was one particular man, his name is Mr. A, and he was experiencing homelessness, but he also had mental health problems. So he was able to apply for benefits from the government, Social Security or disability. And that gave him enough money so he was able to pay for somewhere to rent. So now he's no longer homeless. There is another young lady, her name is Miss M. I remember that was about 2 years ago. She called me frantically. Someone had given me her number. She had lost her housing and she had all her belongings and she was on the bus stop. And someone who else was homeless who had given my number actually gave her my number and said, if you need help, call Miss Tamara. When she called me, I didn't know what to do, but I called a friend of mine who knew someone else had a room available, and I called a particular organization who was able to pay, I think it was like $700 a month to pay the rent for her, at least for the first 2 months. After that, she too was able to apply for disability. She's been about 2 years now, and she's stable. She's experiencing housing stability. So yeah, we know that the housing crisis is so big, and homelessness is really not what the problem is. There isn't a lack of housing. It's the issues that cause someone to be homeless, whether it be mental health problems, whether it's drug addiction. Some people are just low income and you're just not able to meet your monthly bills, or you may be evicted. So it's the other social issues to me that are the big problem, and not just homelessness. Because if you take someone, my friend Nadine would say, if you take someone who's a drug addict, homeless on the street, and you find a place to put them to live, does that solve their problem? No. In a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, they're going to be homeless again. So let's provide them with the social services that they need to deal with whatever issues that they're having, so that they can find a job and have economic sustainability. So as it relates to trafficking, it's the same thing. We know a lot of, especially females who are in the foster care system, who may have been trafficked. Some of them just don't have those life skills, don't have those social skills to help them to be able to be self-sufficient. And that's one of the other reasons why we have our youth summit, especially our annual youth summit, which will be at Life Point Church this year on March 10th from 10 to 12, where we'll be teaching youth life skills, how to apply for a job, how to do your resume. I mean, sometimes simple life skills, skills that people don't even think are transferable. For young people, just getting up, making up your bed in the morning, listening to your parents, all of these skills are transferable, because if you can't do simple tasks, chores at home, when you start a job, how are you going to do your duties? If you can't listen to your parents at home, how are you going to listen to your boss when you start a job? So we have to teach our young people these simple life skills so they can function in the real world. So basically, as you can see, homelessness and human trafficking, they are very much related, because a lot of people who are homeless, as I said, statistics says about 64% of sex traffic survivors reported being homeless at the time that they were recruited into trafficking. I don't know what the real solution is to this problem. I think it's a lot of different social issues that needs to be addressed, because everyone that's homeless, it's a different situation. You have to speak to people to hear what their different stories are to be able to help them. As I said, this is why we help the people that are experiencing homelessness, especially when we go downtown Broward, because we're not just trying to fill their immediate needs. We're also trying to see what else is wrong and how we can help to refer them to whatever services that they need. Any questions?
How is the support system? You say when they reach out for the needs. Someone's homeless and has a drug addiction or a mental health issue. What happens then? They call NAMI or they call abuse hotline. What's the process for them? Obviously, they're still going to be homeless. Are there spots available in those programs to start working with the homeless and have those types of issues?
It depends on what's wrong with them. Some programs have funding, some don't. It's actually a homeless court downtown Broward. It's like a courtroom similar to what's at the courthouse, but the judge actually...
Is that the mental health court?
No, it's not the mental health court. It's not at the courthouse. It's actually across from the bus station. It's called community court, immediately across from the bus station. So what happens, I think it's once a week, there's a judge there. So if a homeless person has a misdemeanor or something minor, they'll maybe make them write a letter or do community service or something like that, so that they can actually do something to meet the needs of the court. However, there is a lot of community resource there. So while they're in that room, if you need housing, you go to that table. If you have mental health problems, you go to that table. So in that room, there's a lot of resources that's available to those people experiencing homelessness. And if they really need the help, but sometimes they're not ready. You know, sometimes we're ready to push them into getting stable, but mentally, they're not ready to receive the help. But once you're ready to receive the help, especially downtown in that community court room, whether it's BRAC, whether, you know, there's so many different resources there that they can use to be able to get it. Even the homeless task force, they're there as well. So if someone is, you know, they can sign up and be on the task force list, so that when a shelter or a long-term facility becomes available, then they'll be contacted.
How literate or illiterate are the homeless? Can they typically read? Can they write? How is their ability to communicate with those agencies?
Homeless task force, they have specific days that they go to different places.
Okay.
So that's one way. They're not waiting for people to come to them. They actually go out there to try to get people to sign up. So as it relates to people that are homeless, they're illiterate or not, let me just say this: homelessness affects pretty much anyone. I remember 2019 Christmas Day, and I'll never forget this. My son wanted to go downtown Miami, because my church usually go down there to do a homeless outreach. And Christmas Day, we got up early and we went downtown, and that was my first time actually serving a lot of people that are homeless at once. You know, usually, you know, at a stoplight in my car, we'll have a snack and give them a bottle of water or a snack, or, you know, chips or something. But that was my first time, like, going to somewhere where a lot of homeless people congregate. And I remember just, you know, talking to people, just, you know, I had the time. I'm just talking to them, trying to hear their stories, trying to find out why they were there. And there was this one guy, he was an architect, and something went wrong. I think he lost his family or something like that, and he just lost a grip of life, and he ended up being homeless. I also remember my friend Megan, she told me a story maybe 2 years ago. She said that she and her son, they were on a plane going out of town, out of Fort Lauderdale. And there was a guy that was sitting beside her that had holes in his pants, and he probably smelled a little bit. And her son, I think he was probably about 7 at the time, he said, "Why do you have holes in your pants?" And the guy asked Megan, "Is it okay for me to share my story with him?" And she said yes. And he said years ago he worked on Wall Street in New York, and he made a lot of money. And his wife and his children died in a car accident, and he just lost a grip on life. And his mom was living in Florida. She retired here, and she told him to come and stay with her. And so he moved to Florida, and, you know, she was his, you know, rock, and she died as well. So everything just spiraled out of control, and he ended up downtown as well. Somehow he just started getting some mental clarity, and he called a cousin of his that lives in another state. You know, he said, I want to get my life back together. And his cousin said, "I'll buy you a ticket and you can come and stay with me."
Wow.
So there might be people that are experiencing homelessness, that are on drugs, or, you know, different mental health issues, that kind of stuff. But based on me, I've been going down there for speaking to homeless people for so many years. And when you hear the stories, they're educated people like you and I. They're just people that you and I sometimes go through a hard time. Sometimes they don't have the family support or have friends to support them when they go through hard times, and they're just not able to pick up the pieces. So sometimes some people are just not ready, you know. Also, it could be that something traumatic happened to them, and their life spiraled out of control, and they started having mental health issues, but they're not ready to receive the help as yet. So we just have to be consistent in trying to offer help, so when they have that lucid moment, we're there with the olive branch, and when they're ready for help, they will say yes.
If you are in Sunrise, Florida, please visit our club. You can find the meeting times on our club website. I have a video on the history of Rotary and my personal goals in joining Rotary. What is Rotary? We have a short video that we downloaded from the Rotary International website that explains the many goals of Rotary International.